Welcome to Upstage Downstage, with him, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And him, Stephen Rees, typically seated in the cheap seat.
This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen,
Things we've liked,
and may not have liked,
giving our complete unprofessional
and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew,
Take a seat,
and let's raise that curtain.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing Spy Monkeys, The Frogs. We saw this production at Royal and Derngate, Northampton on the 3rd of February 2024. Spy Monkeys' tragically funny attempt to pull off Aristophanes' classic comedy written by Carl Grouse and Spy Monkey, The Frogs, is a result of a long-term development process between the company and Royal and Derngate, directed by Joyce Henderson and designed by Lucy Bradridge, with original music by Toby Park. So Richard, what's it all about?
Spy Monkeys, Toby Park and Eta Basori are at the end of the road. The other Spy Monkeys have taken themselves off to a better place and they're about to call it a day. To their rescue rides mega-rich philanthropist Patty Getty and her theatrically ambitious niece Pamela with an offer they can't refuse. But does this beleaguered comedy duo have what it takes to perform the classic Greek comedy The Frogs at Patty's legendary amphitheatre in Hollywood?
But first, our post-show opinion!
A riveting retelling of a Greek comedy.
This ambitious amphibious act gets my applause.
So with all that said, let's...
Set the scene!
Right, Richard, set the scene.
Well, I think this episode deserves us to not just talk about what was in the auditorium, but what happens when we get through the first door into the Royal and Derngate.
Yes.
What can we say? But it was
like
a
a
little
maze.
perplexing.
Yeah, it was like an annex on top of a theatre at the very front, but a modern day
With a maze of stairs.
architecture. It's like the insides of a new Doctor Who TARDIS.
Like, we've got a ticket scanned at the front with a lot of security, up probably one flight of stairs, then up another flight of stairs to go down a set of
missing
stairs.
the box office.
Yeah, so we couldn't
on
go to the
left,
box office.
selling the programmes.
Yeah.
So the three staff members sat behind there probably twiddling their thumbs.
Yeah, and then we had to go up some stairs to down some stairs, then round some stairs, and by the
Over
time
some
there,
stairs.
and then we eventually got to the outside of the theatre and near the bar area, but it was a little bit of a journey.
It was definitely a bit of a journey. It was a funny kind of theatre, but I think as we know, it's a new structure in front of an old one.
Well, built
or at the
round
back,
and- yeah.
around it, yeah. However, at the end of it, we did walk around it on the outside, and it's quite a nice place, isn't it?
Yeah, it is
Northampton?
very, yeah,
You
definitely.
wouldn't normally think to go there, but it was
Wasn't it?
quite a nice place. Well, the bits we saw, anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in the dark with the lights on.
Yeah.
That we like it. Well,
Is it?
not always with the lights on, but still.
No, okay, so we went into the...
Oh, you're being serious now.
Oh, do you want me to bring
Cut
it
to
back?
it then. Go on then, I'll drink my tea.
So, as we walked into the theatre, which was within this building, surrounded with concrete, really.
Well, you're setting the scene wonderfully now.
I know,
It's
I'm really
we're-
starting well.
You're making it sound like we're in a bunker surrounded by concrete.
Well, it was weird going into a theatre inside a building. It was a bit like, we were going into another area. Because it felt like you went back in time through this concrete door, really, because all of a sudden you're back into like a very Victorian music hall.
Well, even going to the toilets, you went through a plethora of doors,
Yeah,
trotted into the actual auditorium when the actors were warming up. So,
yeah.
where the toilets.
Yeah, exactly.
And they all seem to... I don't know what it is about Northampton or the toilets in particular, but they came up to your kneecaps.
Yeah, well, this is
Urinals that
just
come up to your kneecaps and no higher. It's like, should I be on my knees in the bathroom, or is that going to give people the wrong impression in Northampton? I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure.
We're yet to find out. It's first attempt.
Yeah, so I don't think we went into the child's toilets. But anyway. I can't keep that in. Or maybe I can. I don't know. People might find it funny.
So anyway, we went into the auditorium eventually, by the time we found it.
This podcast is, clocking on for about 10 minutes now.
And we took our seats.
Yeah.
And on the stage was really, it was a bare stage with a staircase.
Best stage with stuff on it.
Best stage with, there was just nothing flowing. There was no scenery. There was nothing up in the fly tower, really. It was literally just a staircase, a revolving platform, and
A staircase that went up and over a wardrobe, which would eventually move. That was on wheels.
Yeah, and that was it, really. There wasn't really a lot more on stage. You could tell there was
a
props
mirror
around.
Up on top left.
Yeah, and there was obviously prop boxes and props underneath the staircase, very similar to when we saw Pride and Prejudice, sort of, where everything was hung and located around the staircases.
It was very well hung, wasn't it? These frogs were very well hung.
It was. You did comment.
Pardon?
You did comment how hung it was.
Yeah, it was very well hung. I was impressed.
Yeah. and I suppose really everything was just a neutral wood or stone colour. There was nothing really to give away that there was actually all of the staircases and the panels were all LED lit underneath. It was all well concealed, really.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it, really.
Yep, and then we get into the story of it where all three of them came in and they were wearing these fluorescent like mats, which I suppose resemble frogs.
Good. There were actually better quality ponchos than you'd have at Alton Towers. They were the ones that would probably stop the rain rather than, not do anything.
Yeah, they wouldn't get you wet.
No. Shall I reword that? Do you mean you wouldn't get wet wearing them?
You wouldn't get moist you wouldn't get wet.
Oh, we're getting moist in there now.
You wouldn't get dampness creeping up into your kneecaps if you went. Look, I don't know. Look, just shut up, Stephen. So yeah, they came in and they were like stood about for a couple of seconds, like wondering what to do. So everyone was paying attention to them, and then they started singing. Well, they went up the stairs and started singing a certain song. It is actually a song, isn't it?
Yes.
Is it an original or is it a Gilbert and Sullivan thing that they added to it? I
think they were all originally written for this.
The first one wasn't. It was like a limerick about being a frog. So to set up, I'll just read a bit from Wikipedia about what the frogs is, and it tells the story of the god Dionysus, who, despairing of the state of Athens' Tragedians, travels to Hades, the underworld, to bring the playwright Euripides back from the dead. Euripides had died the year before, in 406 BC. He brings along his slave Xanthias, who is smarter and braver than Dionysus. As the play opens, Xanthias and Dionysius bear with, argue over what kind of jokes Xanthias can use to open the play. For the first half of the play, Dionysius routinely makes critical errors, forcing Xanthias to improvise in order to protect his master and prevent Dionysius from looking incompetent. But this only allows Dionysius to continue to make mistakes with no consequences. To find a reliable path to Hades, Dionysius seeks advice from his half-brother Heracles, who had been there before in order to retrieve the hellhound Cerberus. Dionysius shows up at his doorstep dressed in a lion hide and carrying a club. Heracles, upon seeing the effeminate Dionysus dressed up like himself, can't help laughing. When Dionysus asks which road is the quickest to get to Hades, Heracles tells him that he can hang himself, drink poison, or jump off a tower. Dionysius opts for the longer journey, which Heracles himself had taken, across a lake. And that's how it pretty much starts.
And there we go.
Yeah, so I quite like Greek tragedies, but I can never get the names right.
Pretty tragic, really, isn't it?
Euripides. Well,
in
yes,
a comedic way.
Yes, funny that.
Is it really?
Yes. Now, if you're aware of the actual script, The Frogs, what was performed was pretty much very similar or very close to the actual play, as it should be.
Yeah, I suppose they break it down in the aspects of certain parts of the script they sort of jump through because they would have been long, laborious speeches and things like that. So they abridge some things to speed the plot along, really, and interjected with a bit of comedy and a bit of humour, interacting with the audience.
Do you remember how they did that on one particular scene at the very beginning when they fast forwarded one of the
so they used the revolve really cleverly, really, because it's Heracles' speech, and Heracles has been spun round on this revolve, and every time Heracles came past, you heard a little bit of a segment of the speech, and then it faded away as Heracles was going round in circles. So it gave you the fast forwarding almost like of a cassette or a vinyl being sped forward, and then you were transported to the next scene quickly, rather than it taking probably half an hour for that one speech, you know.
And whilst they were doing that, they had the characters of the slave, Xanthias, and Dionysus. They're starting up their double act, because this is exactly what this play is known for.
It's the journey of the duo, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's commented as being like the first double act to exist.
Yeah.
Between these two. So if we just move along, and instead of describing to the viewers, the listeners, as to what the play is about.
Our listening viewers.
So this was directed by
Joyce Henderson.
Oh, that's right, from Complicity. This was quite a fast-paced, well, not necessarily fast-paced in terms of the Complicity thing we saw.
Yeah, exactly.
Kill the bones over the dead of the bodies, or whatever.
Drive the bones over. Drive
the bones of the dead of the body.
Drive your wagon.
Drive your wagon over the
bones of the dead.
Drive your plough into the bones of the dead.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't either. Anyway,
Drive your plough.
Anyway, I'm sure it was episode 50, I think. I forgot where I was going on that tangent then. Oh, yeah, so whilst it wasn't as quick, it did move the story along, because no doubt this was a plodding 3-hour, 4-hour play.
We've probably 100 in the cast. You know, it's going to have it's going to be a big production. You know,
it did stick to the original text somewhat, which I've already said. They had the local talent coming in to be the extra frogs, because there was a frog dancing scene which they tap danced in their glowing max, and they added a lot of atmosphere and just fun and jollity to that particular scene. But we did follow both of those stand-ups, well, Dionysus and Xanthia, along their journey to the underworld.
Yeah, and I suppose it was directed in such a way where they always kept their characters, and Jacoba was doing all the other interactive characters that they interacted with. So every other main character they interacted with, she did those extra.
Yes, I can't remember who she started out as, other than herself or just a frog.
And then Heracles,
but then,
wasn't it?
Well, she came out as Heracles, as this muscled man in like a lion's mane. Yeah, and that got an awful lot of comedy due to the exposure of her fake.
Well, when she
penis.
became skinless, when she actually gave the line of lion skin, there was more revealing things underneath the lion skin than we expected.
Yes, and
Stephen got an eyeful.
Well, we were on the front row. Don't make me out to be kind of like... Anyway, moving on. And it was plastic.
Yeah, it was plastic, yeah.
Just to add.
Yeah, and it was quite lifelike. It was wobbling about.
How up close and personal... Do you know what?
I think as well, for me, from a directorial perspective, things like that, those comedy slapstick moments of, a little bit of unexpected nudity, even if it was plastic, it was just done so cleverly that you didn't expect it when she first walked out.
Well, I did, because I saw the ball bag bobbing about.
Yeah, but there was other things happening. There was a lot of distractions happening that you wouldn't necessarily pay attention to that unless you were focusing on that area,
Shade? That was a bit of a dig there.
Well, what can I say?
I was looking at everything, and I was on the front row. There wasn't anywhere else to look. There was only two people on stage.
If that's what you want to say, yeah. Okay.
Moving on.
It got a good laugh though. I think this showed a lot of confidence in each of those comedic pieces. They'd clearly practiced those moments. You couldn't, because you can't pull slapstick off or silly moments if you don't rehearse them and prepare for them. They're not, it's not something to just play at really.
Playing at a prosthetic penis. Is that where you're going with this?
I am.
Well, you can take it where you want.
A plastic prosthetic penis.
Prosecco.
Anyway,
don't drink from that.
Don't even know her.
So yes, we followed the lives of these two people, and Jacoba, as you say, played all these other characters, including like the maids and other kind of creatures and people.
And Pluto, yeah.
Anyway, the three of them made up a good trio.
Yes, definitely.
of well-established, not just the confidence in the performance, but also the improvisation of everything that went along it. And there was a part where they split between scenes that went a bit surreal, where they were talking about the whole company and the loss of a company member. Well, two of them. So you were then thrown into a storyline, like a B plot, where it was about the actual actors having to move on and try to come to terms with what's happened as well. So it wasn't just about them performing the stage play of The Frogs, but also about Spy Monkeys Theatre Company in general, and just humour about what Peter Brooks mentioned in his play, which they said about slipping between two scenes. And I think you just had a glimpse into their world and who they are, because we've never, well, I certainly haven't heard of the Spy Monkeys at all. I had no idea who they were. So coming to this as a fresh audience member, it felt a little closed off, as if they're talking to the regulars who know them.
Yeah, it felt almost indulgent for their own world. That it took a while before you realised, actually, okay, so they're doing a bit of a retrospective look on their careers as a team rather than a duo, but they're using it as a way to explore the passing of one of their members and the natural changes in their group. So in a way, they turn the Frogs story into a look on what they've been going through, but in a way to bring somebody back. It's also a way of them keeping going as well. Yeah,
which was, after seeing the play and thinking about it, it was quite a nice nod for them to do.
Yeah, totally.
However, it also alienates new people, but yet at the same time, it also makes you research them. I suppose it's quite clever how they've made the audience do the work to research who they are if they didn't know them at all.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And you also sort of feel like you've missed out on all these other shows where it was the original four as well.
Yeah, and it's for me, it was pure fluke that we found out about this production, but normally I've got companies like this on my radar, and this one wasn't. And I think, like you say, you want to find out more now. And if I see another production, I would be intrigued about going to see it, or wanting to see what else they did with something else.
I think it's because they're an international comedy and physical theatre company, and I think that's probably why it's not on our radar, because it goes down that whole style of acting which goes towards like the clownish, and it is the slapstick. I suppose this is why this is marked as being vaudevillian as well. However, even though we know bits about that, this seems to be a very different sort of a thing.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at some of the achievements of the group, they've been involved in Cirque du Soleil and things like that, so you can see that they may have been doing things within other groups and you wouldn't necessarily know that they'd got their own group, because you'd just see them as the characters within those bigger productions in some ways.
And the key core of them, after having researched them, all trained with the French master clown Philippe Gaulier. I assume that's how you pronounce his name. So there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of education, and I don't just mean education in like a layman's term, but the stage craft.
Yeah, exactly.
And the whole way of moving on stage. And I think that's probably where the whole Peter Brook came from, who was another visionary master in himself.
I think there was a lot of things where, I suppose the way you could describe it is, if you've seen Mr. Bean on TV, a lot of things were done in the silent moments to be a reaction or a look to the audience, where words weren't needed. There was other things happening on stage, and you'd have a few moments where you'd be laughing at something just by a raise of an eyebrow or a look at the right point in the production, that you'd filled the gap in yourself, and I think that shows, as you say, stagecraft. It's those quiet moments, those
it's sort of
mime moments, isn't it?
That's where it comes from. I think that's where you mostly see that kind of acting in pantos as well, because it's the pantomime day,
the nudge, wink, wink,
the miming and the slapstick, and I think a lot of that does stem from the same sort
Yeah.
of acting style.
Yeah,
or
definitely.
source of, So it was quite interesting to see a new production company that does something completely different and wacky. And I mean, when you first said about coming to see the frogs, I thought, what the heck's this about?
Yeah, exactly.
The frog? Do we get free Freddos when we walk in? What the heck is this? I had no idea. I mean, even though I love Greek mythology and stuff like that, and I knew about Euripides and Aristotle and so on and so forth, I didn't know that there was actually a play called The Frogs. I wasn't that well known.
Because it sounds a little bit far-fetched
And
for being a Greek production
you don't
in a way.
Expect it, do you?
Yeah. You expect it to have something quite a serious name rather than The Frogs, It's...
So without going too far into the whole writing, because I think the adaptation was good, because we've got nothing to compare it to.
Not at all.
We've not seen it done classically, obviously, we're not that old. We've not seen it done in a different style, and we don't know anything about it. So we've got nothing to compare it to. However, researching it and knowing what the plot points were and what the story was about, I think it's fair to say that they stuck pretty much to the plot.
Yeah, exactly.
To the story.
Yeah.
A few things might have been taken out just to manage for the 3 core cast.
Yeah. But I don't feel like I've missed anything. I still feel like I understand the plot and the story of the key points of the actual production itself as a Greek play.
And even the whole ending of it, you can understand why Eta Basuri kept referencing how he didn't like the ending. Yeah. Because in a way, how it was written, there was no ending.
Exactly.
As such.
Yeah.
Just because even in the end, it was about these 2 playwrights, Euripides and Aeschylus. It's about who could have the best chair at Pluto's table for the best poet of Greek tragedy. So it was a toss-up between who was the best playwright, really. So there wasn't much of an ending, but you could see the reference that they tried to make light of the fact that it just ends sort of how it does.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's, in a way, it's more about the journey and the trials and tribulations of that journey rather than the actual ending. And that's probably where this goes. It's almost to teach you that actually no one's right or wrong. Everybody can have a voice in a way.
Yes. Although I think some scholars say that it's about when you've got the old ways of doing things and the new ways of doing things. The play's about the old ways the best.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's trying to come through in terms of the writing styles.
Yeah.
If we just move along to the direction of it now. As we said, that it was quite fast and pacey when it needed to be, but there was a good use of the space, especially the revolve, which was just this round circular thing that was about 12 inches up off the floor.
It was good. It was about 4 off the floor.
Yeah, and just moved around, and they used that a lot to walk.
Yeah.
If they were walking miles, they'd be just walking and then overtaking each other as if someone's tired, and it just got a lot of use, which was really good to see.
Yeah, and it was little things like
very inventive and clever as well.
Like there was one little moment that really shows that when they were walking through the land of the dead bodies, and it was literally just done by putting wooden statues of people, and they were walking over them and through them, and then as they came round, they were being taken off again. So you felt like you'd gone to a different place just by purely having a revolve with statues being put on it, and you're walking round a different area, and then they'd use the steps with the platform at the top to almost feel like climbing a mountain and climbing back down, and it was that worked really well, where you felt like you were travelling and using the whole stage to actually travel around, move around, and
when she did that, Jacoba did that, she put these little models, they're like the sculptors, painters, little
sculptors,
models, they put them on. She put them on. It reminded me of how they did the lanterns in South Pacific.
Yeah, exactly that.
And how each time they just put bits on. So once they did like a couple of rotations around, she took them off again. So that was quite interesting, and the whole use of the bags, these huge. Whilst everything else seemed to be in fitting, and then there were, I suppose it's costumes and whatever. But the bags, they were those typical Hessian plastic
laundry bags, almost the things that you take to a laundry, like a laundry room or whatever, full of
rectangle sort of plastic huge
that look like
bags.
Fake tartan in
Yeah, they were there, but the thing is with those bags, nothing. You never really saw anything in them. They were just there as seats.
I suppose that's what I was going to say. Is there was actually either a foam block inside them that made them look very light, but actually you could sit on them.
Yeah,
and it was quite clever because they became the seats rather. They didn't bring anything else on to sit on apart from those when they needed it.
Yeah, and the use of the wardrobe was quite clever as well, because we just assumed it was a wardrobe as an entrance and exit to go under the stage, but then that got moved and turned around to be
Spy Monkey's office.
Yeah, for the Spy Monkey's office in the B plot.
Yeah, the B plot. Yeah,
really about them coming to do the show.
Yeah, and it got all their posters of past productions, the little nod to all Stephen, the members of it, and all the people in the group before. People maybe not around anymore, but it was a nice little nod, really.
And it was quite clever how Aitor set up the fact that he wanted to do several things on a list of what he wanted to achieve on a stage.
Yeah.
And bit by bit, he started to just tick them all off.
Yeah.
Like he'd play a musical instrument, or he'd tap dance, or he'd retell a post World War II American sort of scene. And then he did Streetcar Named Desire later on. And there was a lot of things that he managed to do which were quite clever throughout the play.
And I think there was other little things that were really cleverly directed where, like when they dropped the contract in from the ceiling, those moments are really clever where they just, it was simply on a bit of rope dropped from the ceiling, a contract on a clipboard, and it just, they just positioned themselves right so this contract just appeared from above. And that takes timing, that takes effort to make sure that they're in the right place at the right time for that to happen, and it seems seamless.
And to add to that, they were thrown a pen from the side to sign it. It was thrown in for Aitor to sign it, and whilst he grabbed it,
he actually missed it.
Yeah, it missed, and it went up his sleeve, and it was like, that's part of the magic, and that referenced another thing that I said that was on his list of what he'd wanted to do was to perform magic
on stage.
And he wanted to get that in. And also they were quite clever in using the third or fourth member who was in Las Vegas of the Spy Monkeys as an audio reference, as if she's there giving them ideas to take this Jacoba on to do this play, which actually, researching them, links back to one of the times where they first went to Las Vegas and was offered some money to do a production there.
And I mean, just reading, why they picked the frogs, and it's very obvious that they did it because it was actually, they draw on the specifics of the performers, so that, it was definitely aimed at being a retrospect, which makes sense now when you reflect on it after you've seen it. So from when you look at the directing of it, you can see why they did the bits they did within the production, to get to where it was as that sort of production. Yeah,
whilst saying that though, when you were watching it, there was an obvious dip in tone and in atmosphere when they went to the B plot, which was basically Spy Monkeys in an office talking about their history.
Yeah, exactly.
It did seem
and it didn't feel like it was just us that felt that. I felt like the rest
in the room.
Of the room.
Shout out to Joyce Henderson for directing this and getting the group perform this play in the way it was done, because I felt it was very fresh and very new. It was exciting and entertaining, but not over the top. It was one of those, it was an underdog that you just knew it was going to do really well given time.
Yeah, and you could tell it was in safe hands on stage. Even if there was a little moment of ad-libbing or whatever happened, they were straight back on task. So they knew the production inside out. They knew where they'd got to go and what they were doing. So that's where Joyce would make sure that they had a tight ship, so they knew what was happening.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say, we're here for the drama. I'm guessing this is the first time that the original cast of Spy Monkeys have worked with Jacoba Williams together is in this trio. And to be honest, it felt like they've worked together for a while. Everything seemed like they'd known each other longer than this. And I think that was quite key for making this production work in the way it did. I mean, she said that she was doing a monologue, which again broke it up, like a
TED Talk.
TED Talk, like the C plot, where she was giving the information out about the company and her point of view as to how she's joined them and what's going on. And whilst that was quite good and funny in that, it was nice to see them all interact and get the point across in a very funny way without it being in any way awkward.
Yeah, and I didn't feel anybody upstaged anybody. It was, they all played their solid parts. And as much as it's like, you could look at that and think, well, you know, does that mean they're not performing? No, they were performing to their best, and each of them let each other shine where was necessary, and I think that was important with this, because there's only 3 core members of the production. You know, you've got this community cast, but this is a three-hander, really, you know. And,
and I think when you see someone go off piece off script or they improvise, it's how the others react to know if they're comfortable with that. And you could see that they all were. Yeah.
And also, there was moments where they might have gone up script, or they might have just struggled to say a word. I mean, let's face it, everybody does that. If you just can't, do. Yeah, we do. And I mean, it happens, but they didn't giggle and laugh about it and turn it into something silly. Well, they just re-delivered it to make sure it hit the joke rather than giggle about it.
There was one specific scene which was near the end where Toby was in like that plastic tubing and Ator he was sitting on the stairs and Jacoba was on the top of the platform, and it was just one particular word that he just couldn't literally couldn't get it out. Yeah. Right. And they just ad-libbed a bit around there.
But they didn't break their characters, and they might have raised the eyebrow to the audience, but it wasn't enough. Ad-libbed a bit. Yeah,
ad-libbed
a bit. Yeah, exactly.
See, I can't even get my words out.
Ad-libbed a bit.
Ad-libbed a bit.
But yeah, I think that's important, because when you're doing comedy, if you start laughing, it's not funny to an audience. It's like, but if you do a nudge and a nod or a wink, that's funny because we're with you. You know, we know that you've got to try and get the words out or something. You know,
I think because of the nature of this play anyway, they could get away with it.
Yeah, of course.
This isn't like Howell Pinter or something like that.
No, not at all.
This is something where they do have asides to the audience members. They
break the fourth wall, basically. Yes. But they did it right. It's easy to what you felt welcomed into their humour rather than point, laugh. It was none of that. It was more, we're welcome into their space. That's what I felt. You know.
Now, should we talk about the costumes and the props?
Yeah.
There was quite a lot of costumes going on here. There was a lot of costumeology going on. Mostly down to Jacoba Williams wearing just everything.
She had many changes.
She wore things from insects to strange creatures to like the
cloaked
like
women,
death, women, someone from the 70s, 60s. You didn't know where what was going to come next.
No.
And they did actually make a joke of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt that as well, Jacoba changed her accents or her mannerisms just between everything she did. So when she walked out as a different character, it could have been a Yorkshire accent. Accent. It could have been a Yorkshire accent. It could have been a London accent. Everything worked. It was different for each character, so that you knew it was somebody different walking onto stage. You know, so she must have put a lot of time in. When she's getting changed, she's changing into that other character as well in her mind. So that helped a lot.
You could see her as being really good as like a Dandini role. You know what I mean? Like, she must have done that part.
You could also see her quite easily do a one-woman show where she just performs different characters on stage, and she could easily change.
Oh, she could have been in Pride and Prejudice. But anyway, that's just... she could have been in anything at the end of the day.
I think for me, the costume-wise, you'd got the nod to the Greek comedy. You've got the tunics and the things
what was good about that, let me just interrupt here, the fact that Toby was dressed in his Greek costume and he was wearing these like platforms, sandals on platforms, and he was like trying to get down the stairs.
Yeah. There were like concrete slabs on the bottom of his...
It was hilarious. That was. Yeah. But then he took them off to
have more nimble feet.
Yeah, have my walking shoes on, which were just plain sandals.
But I think it's little things like Ata's dishevelled tunic almost, and the bags and things. You felt like he was, and the mop that was the goat, the mop that was the mop that became the donkey, and things like that. And it just everything felt like he was the pack horse. He was carrying all these things across the, his reactions and mannerisms help give you that impression that they were slogging over like mountains and hills to get to places and stuff like that. And
there was also a lot of musical instruments in this. Well, when I say a lot, there was a guitar, a flute, and a cello?
A clarinet.
Oh, clarinet.
Yeah, bass clarinet.
In this production, we had the community cast as well.
Yeah.
They came in to tap dance as frogs in the first act, and then we didn't really see them again until the very end.
No, I think it was kind of funny. They were all committed and happy to be part of it.
Well, they were very happy. They enjoyed the limelight, didn't they?
Yeah, and they were all very silly and played the silly roles as well.
Each time we see a production and they've got a community cast, like in Inspector Calls and The Flood, they were a bit not used enough. Whereas in this one, I felt like probably they could have done a little bit more, or they could have had some kind of interpretive dance within like Hades, like if they had like another, or maybe like another costume change, I suppose, or frog.
It's a little bit like the tentacles and stuff. They could have been moved by the community cast rather than one of the characters on stage.
They could have done like some like I don't know, Greek wind or some kind of like shrieking or something when they were coming out, or there could have been something else maybe. I mean,
it's things like when you had the big frog, you could have loads of little frogs, and it's all those things you could have played a little bit more maybe with that to increase the community cast, even to the realms of set and prop movement. They could have been involved in that as well. But bearing in mind, if it is touring, they're not going to take these people along, which they are doing. However, even if they just had some kind of choreography in the background. Exactly.
That, maybe, I don't know. It just felt like they were like bookended in a way.
Yeah, they were there, then they weren't,
Yeah.
Well, in a way, they were better. They did more than Inspector Calls. They didn't just stand there.
Yeah.
And then, at least there was a bit more to it than just,
Yeah, let's talk about the big frog.
The big frog. No, this was one of the things on Ata's list where he's going to have a puppet on stage and he's going to operate it, and he very much did. It was a huge frog's head with arms, and he came out wearing wellies, and he became that big frog.
Move over, Kermit.
Yeah.
So, and you can see the spectacle there of having this huge frog, come right at the very end, which I think was rather fitting. Now, when we saw Dick Whittington, they brought out the huge king rat at the start, and I think this is how you bring out a creature or something that's
a set piece that's
quite big.
Definitely.
Bring it at the end, so you feel there's a resolve there, or you feel.
Well, you also feel like there's a crescendo at the end, rather than using your surprise right at the start and then never using it again. I think that was good.
Yes, it was. So all in all, the overall piece of it was all fitting and well put together.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say,
What the Tech Is This?
I mean, lighting-wise, it was done really well. I mean, there was a few follow spots, there was a few general cover lights. I mean, there was a lot of LEDs hidden in the staircase and all the areas around those set pieces on stage that just lifted the set. It just made it come alive more than it just being a staircase with no light or no borders of colour, and that just helped change the space and things like that. There was a decent smoke machine that did the job when one of the props we didn't talk about was there was a what can only be described as a boat worn by Jacobert again, where it had a little lantern on the front, and it looked, but it was only half of the boat, and it was just brought on to look like a big boat had come on, and because they'd filled it with smoke and everything, it felt like it was floating on water, and I thought that was really good. But also, to add to that, there was a lot of sound effects in this, and there was a lot of recordings, and they were done really well. Even the songs, even though the cast maybe sang the songs on stage, they were reinforced by the same song that they'd sung. So it felt bigger and it felt more of a performance every time they did the songs as well.
There was a lot of pre-recorded things.
A little bit like the swimming scene where...
Oh yeah, when he jumps off into
where
the
Aita
pool.
jumps off into the pool, into the water, and it's just done by a splash and a gurgle and a swim, and then another splash, but it was really funny because he was silly doing it as well, so that worked really well.
And now it's time for
Rewind, Rewatch.
I'd watch it all again, to be fair. So I enjoyed it. It was a nice, cosy laugh, and I'd quite happily watch them again.
If I was to pick out a particular scene, I think it would be the face slapping scene or the spanking scene, because that was quite funny.
They're both good. Yeah, that was good.
So to describe that one, so Jacoba as the maid or the mistress. No, she was the housekeeper. Or she played one of those people that were annoyed at Dionysus. So she was slapping Toby.
Yeah.
And each time she slapped, it was a stage slap. So Aitor just clapped his hands. And each time it got to the point where he was doing it before she'd even slap him. So then the comedy built up where he then started clapping more, and then she just had to keep up with the claps just to pretend to smack him. That was a funny one. And then in the other scene where they were spanking, when she was spanking both of them, as a form of punishment, as to see which one was the better, which one was the slave and which one was the master, they both faked it in terms of how much they were in pain. So then she just ended up being like a free-for-all, just whacking them from left to right constantly with this great big, like a rug beater, and just battered them until both of them sort of like weren't affected by it.
Yeah,
so she
totally.
just gave up. And those scenes were quite effective and really funny, I thought.
Yeah, they were really funny.
I'm glad you enjoyed that.
I did.
Moving on to our final segment, as we say,
Call this a show?
to sum up this play, I would say it was a very interesting play. It was a good take on a Greek play. People should go and see it. I mean, the tickets are pretty much cheap, so it's a good night out. It's funny, it's entertaining, and it's also a good way of getting you to be educated, not just about Spy Monkeys and the comedy and performances that they do and where they come from, but also to learn a bit more about Greek, not necessarily Greek mythology, but the Greek storytelling and where, plays originated from.
Yeah, because they it did feel like it was a wandering group of theatre performers that were telling a story, and that really is how things would have been done if there was no scene set or there was no staging. It would have just been a tale being told to a big group of people watching it. So, I think they pulled it off really well, and it felt faithful to the style of production, really,
Scores then, please, Richard, for Spy Monkeys, The Frogs. On a scale of 1 to 10, and with 10 being the seat of best frogtastic Greek play at the dinner table of Pluto, and 1 being a performance best kept for Hades in the underworld. What's it going to be?
I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 just because of the hit the ground running side of who Spy Monkey were, and that's really the only reason I'm knocking a couple of points off, just because of that part of it.
Yeah, so I think I'll go with 8.5. So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed? An audible shrug of the shoulders? A slow clap? A pleasant applause? Or a standing ovation? What will it be?
I'm going to give this a pleasant applause.
I'm going to give it a pleasant applause as well.
And there we are.
So there we are. That's our discussion of Spy Monkeys, The Frogs. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Stay tuned as we bring you more of our thoughts
And opinions.
on many theatrical delights in future episodes.
If you'd like to get in touch, email us at upstagedownsstagepod@gmail.com. You can always join in the chat to share with us your views of a production.
Also, make sure to follow, share, like and subscribe to all our channels so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of
Upstage Downstage.
Spy Monkey's tragically funny attempt to pull off what was it? Aristophanes. Spy Monkey's tragically funny attempt to pull off Aristophanes' classic comedy, written by Carl Gross, and Spy Monkeys The Frogs is the result of a long-term development between... No.
You said spine monkeys.
Is that not what they call?
Spine.
Spy Monkeys.
You sound like spine monkeys.
No. Spy Monkey's tragically funny attempt to pull off Aristophanes. Spy Monkey's tragically funny attempt to pull off Aristophanes' classic comedy, written by Carl Gross and directed by Joyce Henderson and designed by Lucy Bradridge. And designed by Lucy Bradridge, with original music by Toby Park. I'm going to say that again. Directed by Joyce Henderson and designed by Lucy Bradridge. Directed by Joyce Henderson and designed by Lucy Bradridge. This is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. This isn't like me. This is not like me.
Failed.
And designed by Lucy Bradridge. Breadcrumbs? Bradridge. And designed by Lucy Bradridge with... I best not clip my fingers at the same time I'm saying that.
Spy Monkeys Toby Park and Aita Basori. Spy Monkeys Toby Park and Aita Basori. To their rescue rides mega rich philanthropist.
Philanthropist.
To their rescue rides mega rich philanthropist. To their rescue rides mega rich To the rescue rides mega rich philanthropist Patty Getty. Philanthropist Patty Getty. Patty. But does this beleaguered... To their rescue rides mega rich philanthropist... pissed. To their rescue rides Mega bitch.
Mega bitch.
No, Mega bitch.
Oh, Mega bitch.
Like Rasta Mouse. Mega bitch.
Philanthropic.
But does this beleaguered comedy duo... But does this beleaguered comedy...
You have to be careful with your B's and your P's.
I know!
With your patties and your butts.
Get your butt out of it.
You pop your mic. So with all that said...
No, so with all that said.
So with all that finally said...
No, so with all that said.
So with all that said... Are you searching for your applause?
I live for the applause. Go on then.
Have you finished making a bloody noise?
Oh, I'm waiting. Wait for me to spank your monkey.
Excuse me.
The podcast.
It's not this kind. It's not that kind of a podcast.
Oh, we're talking about frogs and spy monkeys, not... Oh, yeah.
Not spanking your monkey with your frogs looking. Right then, are we ready? Me. You. Vocal warm-ups. Are we ready now?
Yeah.
Shall I just read what's in Wikipedia?
Yeah.
Or something like... Oh yeah.
Do it. I'm going to give this a pleasant applause.
Applause?
Applause. Prawns.
Prawns? What are the frog digits? Suckers. I'm going to give it a round of seersuckers. No, they don't work, do they?
A ribbit of applause.
Scores then, please, Richard, for Spy Monkeys, The Frogs. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the seat of the best... 10 being the seat of best frogtastic... I'm going to have to read this a few times. With 10 being the seat of the best... With 10 being the seat of the best frogtastic Greek play at the dinner... And 1 being a performance... On a scale of 1 to 10... Oh, my phone's gone off. We're getting the hang of this now.
Hang of it.